Part 15. Capital punishment. I want to include in this chapter 2 more ideas about a premature end to life. Although neither capital punishment nor medical intervention are the same as suicide, these two issues also deal with the interruption of a soul's destiny. In saying that, I want to point out that not only is suicide wrong, but so is capital punishment. One of the worst things imaginable is one human being taking the life of another before his or her time. It is a devastating and horrendous act, and one that seems totally unforgivable. In the case of murder, there is the added gravity that justice must be served. There is an incredible sense that by ridding society of the villain, such a brutal act will be vindicated. But that is not really true. Add to this the argument that tax money can be saved by a speedy execution, and capital punishment becomes acceptable. Yes, it is wrong for one to take the life of another, and it is true under any circumstance, including James Van Praagh 182 capital punishment. I ask you to stop a moment and look at this situation from a spiritual point of view and not from an emotional standpoint. Our universe is much larger than we can conceive, and we need to start looking at the situation and every act through spiritual eyes. God, in such incredible wisdom, has created a rhythm to all life. The sun rises and sets, the planets rotate around the sun, the tides ebb and flow, and so, too, each soul has a rhythm of dawning and ending. Because of this rhythm, there is a natural time for a soul to leave this world and return once again to the world of the spirit. And only God knows the whole plan. When a person is violently taken out of the physical body before the predetermined, natural time for the soul to leave, there are spiritual consequences. As in suicide, the magnetic tides of the soul must stay within the earthly atmosphere until its natural time to leave. When a spirit of an individual is forced out of the body by capital punishment, the personality of the criminal remains exactly the same as it was prior to execution. When it reaches the other side, it is usually scared and angry because more than likely it is not highly evolved and is ignorant of spiritual laws. In most cases, such a soul roams endlessly throughout the lower astral world with other like-minded souls. Because these tormented souls carry a mindset of talking to heaven 183 anger and hatred, they often seek revenge for their untimely deaths. They search the earth for weak-minded humans whom they can mentally influence to kill or hurt others. Sounds like a movie, doesn't it? But it is very true. The best thing we can do is to rehabilitate and educate those in our prison system about the sanctity of life. I know it sounds like a pipe dream, but if we destroy someone before his soul's time, we take away all chances for reformation and rehabilitation. It only takes an instant for someone to see the light of God and be transformed. Such a rehabilitated individual may one day help to prevent someone else from destroying another life. The door to growth and enlightenment must always be kept open. By capital punishment, we continue the propagation of violence upon one another. Let's not be so quick to throw the switch without thinking about the consequences of our actions. By understanding the spiritual ramifications, we can begin to adjust our beliefs and not be so hasty to sanction a death sentence. Our society has a spiritual and ethical responsibility to assist these unevolved and tormented souls. Let's not treat them like yesterday's garbage. Please understand that I do not condone murder. I want to point out that a person who takes the James Van Praagh 184 life of another does so because he has not yet fully evolved to an awareness of his own divine self. If one is in full awareness of his God self, he would know that killing someone is not even an option. Who are we to judge one another? Do we know enough about the laws of life to play God? I assure you that we are not that powerful. Again, we must keep our minds open and learn to look at things from a spiritual and responsible perspective. Life-saving machines. When someone is kept alive on life-saving equipment such as a respirator, I believe that once again a divine plan is at work. For every disease or health crisis, there is growth, an evolution of sorts, from which we as individuals and society as a whole can learn. Medical breakthroughs and innovative technology are a part of this growth. Every discovery happens in its right time. Perhaps there would be other incredible breakthroughs and inventions if man's ego weren't ruled so much by political or financial gain. However, mankind has been given great knowledge to create that which can be used to assist people in living more productive and quality lives. Many lives have been saved by modern medical technology, including the potent medications and talking to heaven. 185 vaccinations unknown a century ago. Science should be proud of these accomplishments, especially its ability to sustain the quality of a person's life. The key word is quality. Medical professionals are not here to play God, nor could they even if they wanted to. I do not take a stand on whether it is right or wrong to sustain a life on these machines, but I will point out the following. As I have stated earlier, there is a time for the opening and closing of life. I do believe that when the time is right for the spirit to withdraw from the body, it will. Science cannot stop the great universal time clock, as much as it thinks it could, or no matter how hard it tries. Once again, I believe a soul attempts to experience every situation it possibly can. By being attached to a life-saving machine, a soul may be in effect helping science in some way to discover yet another great invention for future generations, not only medically but perhaps in other ways as well. We must look at such a situation from a soul point of view. Perhaps a soul made an agreement before its incarnation to go through such an experience. It could be a situation that assists family members and friends in lessons of love and compassion. Let's not forget that a soul has certain lessons to learn about receiving love or appreciating the sanctity of life. Like any moral judgment, each soul has to make. James Van Praagh 186 this type of decision on its own. For once again I will say, each soul is unique, and each has different spiritual needs and must experience what is best for its soul's growth. There are no right or wrong answers. It is not our job to judge the decisions of others in these matters but to consider the experience and lesson from a spiritual point of view. Talking to Heaven 187 CHAPTAR 8 Loving Reunions. I personally believe the most crucial aspect of my work is to dispel the power we give to the emotion of fear. Fear is not only an illusion but the largest block to personal growth and the potential of the human spirit to excel. Fear binds people to inner conflict and deprives them of a sense of individual freedom. By being in fear, we cannot live in love, and indirectly we say goodbye to a lifestyle rich in creativity and productiveness. Fear is like a vicious circle. When we tune into it, we give it life, then we attract the very thing we fear, and consequently the fear becomes our reality. In other words, the old adage "what you fear comes upon you" is true. We must remember that our thoughts create. Thought is God's energy or creativity. We can use this energy any way we please because we have free will. We must also realize that we are responsible for the results of our thoughts. When we persist in thinking a certain 188 way, such as in fear, such thought energy takes shape in our life. When I begin the process of reading my clients psychically, I inform them of the way they allow fear to enter into their minds and how their fears affect their bodies, their overall health, and their lives in general. As simply as possible, I help them to recognize this adversary and to find ways in which they can change the beliefs that lead to their fears. If they truly get it, they access an enormous number of creative possibilities within themselves. At first, it is very difficult. People are not likely to change so quickly, especially after decades of conditioning by their families, society, and religious control. But, if anything, I am able to plant a seed and enlighten them to see all the possibilities. By opening a new door in their thinking, I can steer them to use their thoughts in positive and loving ways. One of the biggest fears is the fear of loss. To some, this fear appears as an impossibility to acknowledge any happiness, goodness, or abundance in their lives. To those who have everything they have always wanted, they might feel on some level that they don't deserve happiness or are not worthy of abundance. Others cannot even imagine a life of fullness and joy because it is too good to be true. They think that something will go wrong, and it usually does. I often tell my clients to remember talking to Heaven 189 that we are made from the light. The light is all-encompassing, always creative, and always bountiful. Even though one does not see the light, we must believe that through God's light anything is possible. God always says yes, we are the ones who say no. Included in this fear of loss is the fear of death. I definitely believe, and this may go back to my psychology classes on Freud, that unconsciously the desire and instinct to stay alive is the strongest. Many of us are primarily ego-based and do not want to even acknowledge an end to life, and therefore we fear death. This fear results from the fact that death is a condition over which we have no control. Death is the absolute unknown. It is beyond our human senses and rational, logical thinking. We fear the unknown because we don't know what to expect. We not only don't know what to expect of death, but where, if any place we go. It is unfortunate that death is the ultimate news story because it is this kind of scary thinking, constantly shaped by our society's primitive view of death, that reinforces our fear. It is amazing to me that so many people still believe that when we die, we cease to exist. I feel the work I do is valuable in dissolving such a view and in opening people's minds to something beyond their physical senses. The moment I relay a Spirit James Van Praagh 190 message to a loved one, a person's life is usually changed forever. As I look back over the years, I wish I could have captured these incredible experiences on videotape. It is difficult to relate people's reactions in words, it's just not the same as watching them in person in all their glory. With this book, I have attempted to share with you some of that feeling. When a connection between the two worlds, physical and spiritual, has been bridged, nothing short of a miraculous reunion occurs. It is quite understandable that people are nervous when they come to me. It is more than likely their first experience with a spiritualist, and they have nothing on which to base the experience, except the little they might have read or the inaccurate accounts they may have seen in movies or on television. When I sit with clients who are nervous and anticipatory, I have to establish right from the beginning that spirits use their energy as well as mine. I inform them that the energy is very much like an electrical current, and if they are nervous, it will send a wave, or rippling effect, through this electrical line, and the thoughts will come through to me as gibberish. The calmer they are, the better the connection and the easier it is for me to discern a spirit's thoughts. The most important thing for me is to gain some kind of trust from my clients. When I begin to tell clients something about themselves talking to Heaven 191 that no one else knows, they realize I am legitimate and their defenses begin to come down. Then I am able to move forward, open the door to spirit, and introduce them to the unknown. A seance might start with my picking up a name or a distinctive personality trait, or my describing the spirit I see. It might be as easy as my saying, I have your father here, and he is telling me he died of a heart attack. The moment an individual recognizes the information and its spirit source, the entire energy of the room is transformed. A reunion has begun, and a feeling of excitement fills the air. For the client, there is not only a mental change but a physical one as well. Eyes widen, mouth drops open, beads of perspiration form on the person's forehead, and the heartbeat quickens. By this time, the client wants to hear more and begins to speak directly to the spirit. Usually I have to ask the person to hold back and calm down because the spirit is trying very hard to concentrate a thought to me, and any undue excitement can affect the signal. Besides noticeable exhilaration, clients also feel emotional and most often begin to cry. The crying is a mixture of sadness, extreme pleasure, happiness, and relief. As I convey actual mannerisms and inflections to them, the realization hits that a loved one is indeed not dead. In addition, they act James Van Praagh 192 I feel the love pouring into the room from spirit. As detailed messages continue to come through, any doubting Thomas in the group discards his skepticism and becomes hopeful. A grieving appearance soon transforms into one of pure joy, bliss, and contentment. Moreover, the evidential messages serve as proof that a world beyond the grave does exist, and it leaves a rather profound effect on everyone. When a reunion between the living and the dead takes place, it may be the first time the living understand that death has not robbed them of the love they once experienced with family and friends on the earth plane. Instead, they know that their loved ones are still with them and take a keen interest in their everyday affairs. The living also feel at peace, knowing that their loved ones will meet them when it is their turn to pass into spirit. They also realize they can no longer live life the same way, for they have felt the love and have heard the testimony from the other side, and what was once unknown is no longer. With the knowledge of no death, they are free to live life. In an instant, a life overwrought with grief becomes a life ready to live each day and each moment with newness. With a new awareness, the living recognize that they have their own important contribution to make on this earth, and no longer do they want to talking to heaven 193 waste the precious time they have remaining. They also begin to look at life with the knowledge that we are all one and what affects one person affects everyone. They begin to consider every thought and every action with a pronounced responsibility because they know, through their loved ones, that they will meet up with their actions in the spirit world. Further, my clients have been informed from their spirit relatives that Earth is not the only place for reunions. They, too, have experienced reunions with old family members, friends, and classmates. After years of separation, they reconnect with long-lost loved ones on the other side, where love goes on forever and ever. In other words, no one will ever be alone. Happy anniversary! One of the more moving reunions occurred several years ago. It involved yet another solid, loving relationship between two people. I received a phone call from a man by the name of Larry Gray. He was in his late 70s and spoke in a deep theatrical voice combined with a genteel manner. He said he heard about me from a friend and was wondering if I could help him to do something special. I asked, "What is it?" He told me his 50th wedding anniversary was coming up, and I want to celebrate it with my wife. The only obstacles van Praagh 194 CLA was that she was dead. I told him it could be arranged, and we set up the date and time. The scheduled day for our meeting arrived, and at 12:30 p.m. the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood Larry Gray, 6'4", wearing a nicely tailored 70s style brown suit. I took one look at him and couldn't help but think, what a sweet person. Larry spoke first. "Hello, I'm not bothering you, am I?" "No, not at all. You must be Larry Gray." Yes, I am. I hope I'm not late or keeping you from anything." Larry had a way of apologizing for every action. It seemed as if he did not want to hurt anyone or get in anyone's way. "No, not at all, Larry, I've been expecting you. Please come in." I ushered him into my meeting room and gave him a seat on the couch. He began to talk once again, and I realized that Larry loved to talk a lot. I had to interrupt him, or we would not have had time for the session. I told him this, and he very politely said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You know I'm an old man, and men like me like to talk." "Sorry. Of course, you should do most of the speaking. That's why I'm here, isn't it?" Larry let out a chuckle. I sat down and explained how I did my work. I talking to heaven 195 uttered my opening prayer, and when it was completed, I looked to Larry's right, and I saw a beautiful brunette dressed in a 40s sort of way. I told him, "I believe Kay is standing to the side of you wearing a light pink dress. She reminds me so much of an actress." "That's because she was an actress. We met acting in Berkeley," replied Larry. I continued, "She calls you love. She says love instead of your name. That's nice. We call each other many things. Gee, I look so old. I have gray hair now. She said she married your heart, not your hair." We both laughed, and then I continued. "Kay says you have a beautiful voice. She says you sing all the time." "Yes, that's true. Every weekend I go down to the Christian Science Church and sing in the choir. It gives me something to do. They are very nice to me there." "She is talking now about your wedding. Did you get married outside of California, like New York?" "Yes, New York City." "Can she give you the year?" "I believe she is telling me 1940. "Yes, that's right. What about the church? Will she give you the name of the church?" "James Van Praagh 196, let's see." I waited for a few minutes, and all I got was something about an actor's church. Larry responded, "Well, the church was right around the corner and the actors from all the theaters would go there." "Will she tell you where we lived?" I sent this mental question to his wife, and after a few moments I said, "She is saying something about uptown. Like Upper West Side in a very small apartment." Oh, that's good, that's good. Yes, it was known as Washington Heights. Gee, this gives me a thrill. Larry, she is mentioning something about Philadelphia. Were there any ties to Philadelphia? Yes, because she is talking about going down to Philadelphia on the train. Were there relatives in Philadelphia? Do you understand? Yes, it was about the same time as your wedding. You were living in New York, and you went down to Philadelphia. After we were married, I had to go to Philadelphia every Sunday for a while until I left my church there and got one in New York. I began to laugh and clap. That's good. That's good. Okay, hold on, let's see what else. Kay is telling me she was alone when she died, talking to Heaven 197, and she wanted it that way. Please don't be upset about it. Yes, I was very upset about that, Kay. For goodness sake, you could have waited. No, she had to go when it was right. She is such a sweet woman. She is wearing a beautiful hat. It looks like something from the 40s. She is telling me she used to love to wear hats, and would often say to you, I'm going downtown to buy a hat. Yes, that's exactly right. Gee, that was some time ago. But Kay loved her hats. My, she had quite a beautiful collection. She always dressed so nice. She loved color and beautiful things. She still does. She is going on about a piano. Larry began laughing and insisted that Kay continue to tell me about the piano. She tells me you have the piano at home, and she used to love to play it. She played it all the time. She also mentions something to do with Wagner. Do you understand this? Yes, I do. It's amazing. I bought a piano for Kay, and it is still sitting in the house. But I played it, she never did. I used to play and she would sing with me. We had quite an arrangement going on. Do you remember that, Kay? Oh, yes, I still play it. Does she see me playing? She does see you playing the piano and stands James Van Praagh 198 in the same spot off to the left, just like she used to. What is this about Wagner? I asked Larry. Well, gee, I am ashamed to say this, but I love to collect old records. I have quite a big assortment. I particularly love classical music and just recently was playing Wagner on the phonograph. Maybe it's crazy, but I let it play all day. It's relaxing. I guess it's alright, it doesn't hurt anyone. I returned, no, just the needle, and we both had a nice chuckle. I proceeded with the rest of the message. Larry, Kay wants you to know she was with you at the graveyard earlier. Well, today is our anniversary, and I wanted her to know I love her and was thinking about her. So you know that, Kay? Yes, she is very pleased that you were there. She loves the roses that you brought to the cemetery. Oh, that was nothing. I thought she would like them. She did, I continued. She is showing me a crypt. Is she in a crypt, please? Yes, she is, and I will be right next to her. She is showing you with the flowers. Funny, she is putting a pole in your hand. I don't know what this means. Do you understand this? Well, I think so. When I went to the cemetery to see her, I had to grab a pole to put the flowers in, talking to Heaven 199 front of her crypt. Her place is way up. Could that be what she is speaking of? Yes, that is it. And she talks about all the way up. Kay began sending me another message very quickly. I looked up and replied to her, got it. ... Got it. Thank you. Then I turned to Larry. Is the location of her resting place in the back? It's kind of screwy, the way you have to get to this place. It's in the back, down some marble stairs, and to the side. She is telling me all about this. Larry was not sure. In trying to decipher Kay's message, I did a good job of totally mixing myself up in the maze and Larry as well. I proceeded. There is a lady standing next to Kay. She has a very distinctive voice. Very theatrical. I believe she also sang opera. She brings up the piano again. Do you know why? Yes, of course. That is Esther. She was an incredible singer. All three of us used to work together in the theater. She also was my piano teacher for years. Oh, golly, how nice to hear from her. This lady wants me to tell you that there is a big theater community over there. A lot of voice coaches and music teachers. It's different though, she says. Music isn't as it is on earth. It's more undiluted. She says, here we have pure harmony. On the earth, you just talk about it, but it doesn't come close to the truth. James Van Praagh 200, beautiful. The reading lasted for some time with his wife and teacher as they relived memories of bygone days shared on the earth. It was such a beautiful 50th anniversary. I thought, what else could she say to top this? And then she said it. Larry, do you know anything about Paris? I mean, did you and Kay spend time there? Yes, as a matter of fact we did. What is she saying about it? She wants me to mention something about standing on the Eiffel Tower in Paris. That this was one of the happiest times of her life. Do you understand what she is referring to? Larry started to cry. He took out a tissue, wiped his eyes, and looked straight ahead at me. It was one of the happiest days of my life, too. That was how we spent the first day on our honeymoon. I added, Kay says the rest of your life together was a honeymoon. Larry smiled, and I continued with her message. She will always be with you, Larry, and hold on, she says that she wants you to go home and play her a love song on the piano. With that, Larry smiled and said, boy, that's Kay.
Soulmate, this is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.